Well, one of the major issues to emerge from the financial crisis is that of corruption, both in business, such as Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme, and also the more cloudy and shifty government deals done behind closed doors. But as the idea of greed, which many say leads to corruption, loses its gloss, could the current environment provide an opportunity for general clean-up? To look at this, I'm joined by corruption expert Professor Adam Graycar from Rutgers University and the US Studies Centre. Good morning, Adam Graycar. Welcome to Business Today.
Good morning.
So do you think the current economic position the world finds itself in will lead to more accountability and less corruption?
Well, it's a two-edged sword. On the one hand, there are greater opportunities for corruption and there's a greater impetus to do something about it. Corruption at the moment costs the world about $2.3 trillion a year. That's about 5% of global GDP. The World Bank estimates that about $1 trillion a year is paid in bribes. This is an enormous tax on business. It undercuts markets, it undercuts services, and so there is an impetus to do something about it.
Now, Professor Graycar, President Barack Obama, he presents a very squeaky clean image to the world. How much of an impact does that have on other countries in terms of influencing their own practices?
Well, it's interesting. On his first day in office, he issued an executive order about probity in government. And this was quite new for the United States. But what we've got to remember is America is a very fragmented political society. And so while President Obama issued this very, very important executive order, just last Friday in New Jersey, the FBI rounded up 44 people and accused them of the most wide-ranging set of corrupt practices. So America is not a good example for the rest of the world.
Do you think that going down in the future, then you will still see this disconnect in the United States?
America has a lot of local government where lots of brown paper bags change hands with money in them. But at the highest level, at Obama's level, he's made all the right noises. And in a lot of ways, the society itself has so many layers, as do many other societies, of course.
Now, Professor Graycar, you say that the United States isn't a good example for the rest of the world. So what country would be a good example then?
Well, some countries have reduced corruption enormously. In the Asia-Pacific area, both Singapore and Hong Kong have done enormously well. They had severe corruption problems 40, 50 years ago, and there's been a lot of political will to change it. The Northern European countries, Transparency International puts out a list, and at the top of that list are countries like Finland, like Norway, like Denmark, and also New Zealand is regarded as a low-level corrupt society.
All right, I'll get to the Asia-Pacific region in a moment, Professor Graycar, but I'd just like to look at the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme. Now, that was a major headline and caused a lot of pain. Do you think that we will see other cases like that emerge?
We are seeing other cases like that again and again and again. Now, you can debate a bit about whether that is corruption or whether Mr. Madoff was just simply a thief. And I take the latter view. He stole money that wasn't his. But nevertheless, the regulatory regimes were weak, the oversight was weak, the transparency wasn't there, and the accountability wasn't there. But we will see others like that, and we are seeing them. Just yesterday, on the FBI emails, there was another set of Ponzi schemes that had come up, not as big as Madoff's, of course.
What do you think regulators can do, though, to police this?
I think what we're dealing with are two severe lacks. One is a culture of greed in a society where getting ahead is very important. And it's not just in the United States, but getting ahead, and if you have to cut corners, so be it. And the response is a dual response. One is good, strong political leadership saying this sort of stuff is unacceptable and reinforcing it and backing it with criminalization, investigation, prosecution and sanctions. But as we know, many people are arrested. In New Jersey, where I live, something like 150 public officials have been convicted of corruption since 2001. But they keep doing it. We had 44 arrested last week. So it's the pressing of the leadership is important and the criminalization.
Professor Graycar, now we're running out of time, so I'd like to move on to the region. There are several nations that are known for being corrupt, such as the Philippines and Indonesia. You mentioned that Singapore and Hong Kong have done a very good job at stamping out corruption. But where else would you say that corruption is the worst?
The larger the country, the greater the levels of corruption, because people are often remote from decision-making. Singapore and Hong Kong are small island states, and control can be exercised much more effectively. Countries like Bangladesh and India have very, very severe problems. India does have a anti-corruption agency, but it's not as effective as it might be. Same with the Philippines. Indonesia is making progress, and it has made it's got a long way to go, but it's made considerable progress in the last 5-7 years.
All right, we're nearly out of time, but I just want to touch on China. You mentioned the larger the country, the harder it is. The central government and the provincial governments, they operate quite separately, which makes it very difficult to police and stamp out corruption there, doesn't it?
And yes, that is correct, and this is the American story and the Chinese story. It's a federal system or a diverse system, and again, it's levels of political leadership at all levels that are really important. The central government does have a lot of rhetoric. It has a criminal